/n. The workday is over. But for CEO Jeon Jungkook and his secretary, y/n, the most important meeting of the day is just beginning. In the quiet solitude of his office, a different kind of business is conducted, one of whispered desires and secret touches. The final employee had left over an hour ago, and the sprawling executive floor of Jeon Industries was steeped in a profound silence, broken only by the soft hum of the air conditioning. Y/n sat at her desk, finishing up the last of the day's emails. The click of her keyboard echoed in the empty space. She was about to shut down her computer when the intercom on her phone buzzed, making her jump J/K. Y/n. Could you come in here for a moment, please? His voice, even through the speaker, had that effect on her, a low, resonant baritone that sent a familiar thrill straight down her spine. It was a voice that commanded boardrooms, but in these private moments, it commanded something entirely different within her y/n. Inner monologue, breathe. Just breathe. It's probably just a last-minute document. She smoothed her skirt, took a steadying breath, and walked towards the heavy mahogany door that separated her workspace from his. She knocked softly J/K. Come in. She pushed the door open. His office was a study in modern luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the glittering Seoul skyline. But the man behind the large, minimalist desk was the most captivating view. Junkook was leaning back in his leather chair, his tie loosened, and the top button of his crisp, white shirt undone. He wasn't looking at his monitor. He was looking directly at her, his dark eyes intense and unreadable y/n. You wanted to see me, Mr. Jeon. A slow, knowing smile played on his lips. Mr. Jeon, he repeated, his voice dropping to a husky murmur. We're alone. Y/n, I think you can call me Junkook. Her cheeks flushed. This was the game they played. The shift from professional to profoundly personal J/K. Close the door, he instructed softly, and lock it. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she followed his command, the soft click of the lock sounding unnaturally loud in the quiet room. When she turned back to face him, he had risen from his chair and was walking around the desk. He moved with a predator's grace, stopping just inches from her J/K. I've been thinking about this all day, he confessed, his gaze dropping to her lips y/n. Thinking about what? She whispered, her breath catching Dot in answer. He closed the small distance between them. One hand came up to cradle her jaw, his thumb stroking her cheek. The other hand settled on her waist, pulling her firmly against him J/K. This, his lips met hers in a kiss that was anything but gentle. It was hungry, possessive, and full of a day's worth of pent-up longing. It was a kiss that erased the hierarchy, the professional boundaries, everything. In this room, they were just a man and a woman desperately in love y/n. Her hands came up to clutch at the front of his shirt, holding on as her knees felt weak. His taste, it's like coffee and mint. and something uniquely him. He walked her backward until her legs hit the plush, deep-seated sofa that was positioned against the wall. He broke the kiss, his breathing ragged, and gently pushed her down onto the soft leather. He didn't join her immediately. Instead, he stood over her, his eyes dark with desire as he looked at her, sprawled and breathless against the cushions J/K. "You have no idea what you do to me," he said, his voice a low growl. "Sitting out there, being so efficient, so professional, while all I can think about is having you right here." He knelt on the sofa, caging her in with his arms. His mouth found hers again. But this time his kisses trailed down, past her lips, along her jaw, to the sensitive skin of her neck. He sucked gently, and she knew he was leaving a mark, a secret brand that she would have to hide tomorrow under a scarf or high collar-N. Jungkook. His name was a gasp J/K. "I love it when you say my name like that," he murmured against her skin, his hands moving to the buttons of her blouse. "Like you're falling apart for me." He made quick work of the buttons, his fingers skimming the lace of her bra beneath. His lips followed the path his hands had taken, placing hot, open-mouthed kisses on her collarbone, the swell of her breasts. She arched into his touch, her fingers tangling in his soft, dark hair. This was their secret. The late-night memos that were never written down. The meetings that had no agenda other than this, the desperate, passionate connection they couldn't resist. And as his touch grew more intimate, as his whispers grew more possessive, Y/N knew she was completely, irrevocably his. Not just his secretary, but the secret keeper of the CEO's Harta/N. The passionate encounters on the office sofa are more than just physical. They are a language of their own, where whispered words carry as much weight as caresses. Today, a moment of vulnerability leads to a confession that changes everything. The soft, worn leather of the office sofa had become the landscape of their secret world. It was here, amidst scattered cushions, and in the shadow of his imposing desk, that Junkook shed the mantle of CEO and became simply a man in love. Today, he was particularly relentless. His kisses were deeper, his touches more demanding, as if he were trying to brand the memory of his possession onto her very soul. They were a tangled mess of limbs and whispered pleas, his body a welcome weight pressing her into the cushions Y/N. Her blouse was open, her hair a mess, her lips swollen from his kisses. "Junkook, someone could J/K. "No one is here," he interrupted, his mouth trailing a searing path down her stomach. "The floor is empty. The security feed for this corridor is conveniently looped." He looked up at her, his eyes glinting with a mix of mischief and dark desire. The power he wielded, even in this, was a potent aphrodisiac Y/N. Inner monologue. He's a king in his castle. And right now, I'm his willing captive. His hands gripped her hips, his thumbs pressing into the soft flesh as he continued his worshipful descent. But then, he suddenly stilled. He rested his forehead against her stomach, his breathing labored. The shift from passionate fervor to this sudden stillness was jarring. Y/N. Junkook, what's wrong? He didn't answer for a long moment. Then he slowly pushed himself up, his gaze meeting hers. The raw hunger was still there, but it was now overshadowed by something else, something vulnerable and painfully sincere. J/K. This isn't enough for me anymore. Y/N. The words sent a jolt of cold fear through her. Was he ending this? Was their secret becoming a burden? Y/N. What? What do you mean? He cupped her face, his touch impossibly gentle. I mean, these secret meetings, these stolen moments. I'm tired of sharing you with the world as just my secretary. He took a deep breath, his thumb stroking her cheek. I'm in love with you. The air left her lungs. He had never said those words before. Their relationship had been built on intense attraction, whispered endearments, and a connection that was as emotional as it was physical. But those 3 words had remained unspoken, a silent boundary they hadn't crossed. Y/N. You are J/K. Completely, he confessed, his voice raw. I think I have been since the day you argued with me over the quarterly report and didn't back down. You looked at me, a temp from the agency, and told me my data was flawed. No one has ever done that. A small, odd smile touched his lips. You have no idea how beautiful you are when you're passionate about something. Tears welled in her eyes. Junkook, J/K. I don't want to just be your boss who fucks you on the sofa after hours, he said, the crude word making her flinch. But his tone was earnest, not cruel. I want to be the man who holds your hand in public, the man who takes you to dinner, the man who wakes up next to you. His eyes searched hers, full of hope and fear. I want everyone to know you're mine. The confession hung between them, more intimate than any touch they had ever shared. The office, with its professional pretense, faded away. It was just him and her, and a love that could no longer be contained within these 4 walls. Y/N. She reached up, her hand covering his, where it rested on her cheek. I'm in love with you too. The relief that washed over his face was profound. He let out a shuddering breath, as if he'd been holding it for a year. J/K. Say it again, he whispered, his forehead coming to rest against hers. Y/N. I love you, Junkook. He kissed her then, but it was different from all the others. It was soft, reverent, and filled with a devastating tenderness that made her heart ache. It was a kiss of promise, of a future they were finally acknowledging. He held her for a long time afterward, just stroking her hair, her head nestled on his chest. They were still on the sofa, their clothes in disarray, but the atmosphere had shifted. The secret was no longer about their affair. It was about the depth of their love, a love that was now ready to step out of the shadows. A/N. A confession in the dark is one thing, but claiming your love in the light of day is another. Junkook is a man of his word, and he's determined to show Y/N and the world exactly where she stands in his life. The Monday after the confession felt like stepping onto a new planet. Y/N walked into the office, her heart a frantic drum. The memory of Jungkook's words, "I want everyone to know you're mine," echoed in her mind. What would that look like for the first few hours? Everything was deceptively normal. He was in back-to-back meetings, and she was swamped with scheduling. But the air was charged with a new, unspoken tension. Every time his office door opened, her eyes would flick up, meeting his for a fleeting, electric second. Just before lunch, her phone buzzed. Junkook, my office. Now dotted was the same command, but now it felt different. It felt like a summons from her lover, not her boss. She stood, smoothing her dress, and walked in. He was on the phone, but he waved her in, pointing to the sofa. She sat, her hands folded in her lap. He finished his call, his voice cool and professional, a stark contrast to the man who had whispered love confessions on that very sofa. He hung up and turned to her. The professional mask dropped instantly. A slow, possessive smile spread across his face as he walked over and sat down beside her. So close their thighs, touch J/K. "Miss me," he murmured, his hand coming to rest on her knee Y/N. "It's been a busy morning," she deflected, though her skin was already heating under his touch J/K. "Too busy to think about this." He leaned in, his lips brushing the shell of her ear, sending a shiver down her spine. "About last Friday. About what I said, Y/N. I thought about it," she admitted softly. J/K. "Good," he pulled back, his eyes serious. "Because I meant every word. Starting with lunch, Y/N. Lunch, J/K. Yes, we're going to that new Italian place on the corner, together." Her eyes widened. "Junkook, everyone will see us. They'll talk, J/K. "Let them talk," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. He stood, offering her his hand. "Come on." The walk out of the executive suite felt like the longest of her life. He didn't just walk beside her. He kept his hand on the small of her back, a clear, intimate gesture. She felt the eyes of every assistant, every manager, burning into them. The whispers started before they even reached the elevator. He didn't seem to notice or care. In the elevator, crowded with employees from other floors, he stood close behind her, his body shielding her from the crowd, his presence a silent declaration. At the restaurant, the hostess knew him immediately. "Mr. Jeon, your usual table, J/K. Please, and it will be for 2 today." He pulled out Y/NS chair for her, his hand lingering on her shoulder as she sat down. The lunch was a masterpiece of his public claim. He fed her a bite of his tiramisu from his own fork. He reached across the table to hold her hand, his thumb stroking her knuckles. He looked at her as if she were the only person in the room. The news spread through the company grapevine like wildfire. By the time they returned to the office, the stares were more pronounced, the silence more deafening back at her desk. Her phone lit up with a message from him. "Junkook, see, we're still in one piece." But the true test came an hour later. Kim Seokjin, the head of design, and one of Jungkook's oldest friends strode into the office, a knowing smirk on his handsome face. He bypassed Y/N completely and walked straight into Jungkook's office, closing the door behind him. A few minutes later, Jungkook's voice came over the intercom. Y/N, could you and Jin come in here, please? Her heart dropped. This was it. The confrontation. She walked in to find Jin leaning against Jungkook's desk, arms crossed, still smirking. Jungkook was standing by the window, looking calm. Jin. So, Jin began, his voice playful. The rumors are true. You're dating your secretary. Jungkook turned, his gaze finding Y/N's. He didn't look at Jin. He walked directly to her and slipped his arm around her waist, pulling her close. J/K. No, Jin, he said, his voice clear and firm. I'm in love with my girlfriend. The word girlfriend hung in the air, powerful and definitive. Jin's smirk softened into a genuine, warm smile. Jin, it's about time, you idiot. He walked over and clapped Jungkook on the shoulder, then turned to Y/N. Welcome to the chaos. Take good care of him. The moment Jin left, Jungkook turned her in his arms, his eyes shining with triumph and love. J/K. See, he whispered, kissing her forehead right there in his office, with the door unlocked. No more secrets. He had publicly claimed her, not as a mistress or a secret, but as his girlfriend. And in doing so, he had given her the most precious gift of all, the freedom to love him openly in the light of Dea/N. With their relationship now public within the company, the dynamic between Jungkook and Y/N shifts. The secret is out, but the passion burns hotter than ever, fueled by the thrill of their new reality and the constant, tantalizing proximity of his office. The week following Jungkook's public declaration was a whirlwind of sidelong glances, hesitant congratulations, and a new, palpable energy in the air. Y/N was no longer just the efficient secretary. She was the woman who had captured the heart of the formidable CEO. The power dynamic had irrevocably shifted, and it was a heady, intoxicating feeling. Today, Jungkook had a series of important investor meetings. He was in his element, commanding, sharp, and impeccably dressed in a navy suit that made his shoulders look impossibly broad. Y/N was in and out of his office, delivering files, taking notes, her professional mask firmly in place. But beneath the calm exterior, a current of electricity hummed between them. During a brief lull between meetings, she entered to refresh the water pitcher. He was standing by the window, phone to his ear, discussing profit margins in a cool, calculated tone. He didn't look at her as she approached the conference table, but as she bent over to place the new pitcher on the table, she felt him. He had moved silently behind her. He didn't touch her, but his presence was a physical force, his body just inches from hers. His conversation never faltered, his voice still steady and businesslike. J/K. Into the phone, the projections are solid, I assure you. Will exceed expectations. His free hand came to rest on the small of her back, a slow, deliberate press that made her breath hitch. His thumb stroked a small, hidden circle through the fabric of her dress. It was a secret message, a brand of ownership delivered while he spoke of stocks and shares Y/N. Inner monologue. He's playing a dangerous game, and I don't want him to stop. She straightened up slowly, her body brushing against his as she moved away. A faint, almost imperceptible pause in his speech was her reward. She walked out, her legs feeling like jelly, leaving him to his call, and the ghost of her touch. The final meeting of the day was the most intense. Junkook was at the head of the table, a king holding court. Y/N sat slightly behind him, taking minutes. The investors were tough, grilling him with pointed questions. Junkook was brilliant, his answers sharp and confident. But Y/N could see the tension in the set of his jaw during a particularly aggressive line of questioning. His hand, which had been resting on the table, curled into a fist without thinking. Y/N reached under the table and placed her hand over his. She felt him startle, then his fist immediately relaxed, his fingers intertwining with hers in the hidden space beneath the polished wood dot. It was a small gesture, completely concealed, but it grounded him. His voice regained its effortless confidence, and he masterfully turned the meeting around. No one in the room knew the CEO's secret source of strength was his secretary's hand, secretly holding his under the table when the investors finally left, bowing and impressed. Junkook closed the door and turned to her. The professional mask was gone, replaced by a look of raw, unadulterated hunger. J/K. That, he said, his voice low and dangerous, was the longest 2 hours of my life. He stalked towards her, backing her against the conference table. His hands gripped the edge on either side of her, caging her in J/K. Having you sit there, looking so professional, so untouchable, while all I could think about was what you did under the table. He leaned in, his lips a breath away from hers. You have no idea what that does to me. Y/N. I think I have some idea, she breathed, her heart pounding. He kissed her then, a deep, claiming kiss that tasted of victory and pent-up desire. It was fiercer than their usual kisses, fueled by the adrenaline of the high-stakes meeting and the thrill of their public secret. J/K. On the table, he commanded against her lips, his voice leaving no room for argument. Y/N. Junkook, the blinds, J/K, are closed, he finished, his hands already on her waist, lifting her to sit on the edge of the polished mahogany. This is my boardroom, and right now, I want to see my queen on her throne. He pushed her skirt up her thighs, his hands hot on her skin. His mouth was everywhere on her lips, her neck, the exposed skin of her chest above her blouse. The cold, hard surface of the table was a stark contrast to the heat of his body. It was reckless, it was daring, and it was the most exhilarating experience of her life. Here, on the very table where 1,000,001 deals were signed, they wrote a different kind of contract with their bodies, one of pure, unbridled passion afterward as they leaned against the table, clothes in disarray, trying to catch their breath. He looked at her with Aj/K. "You are my greatest asset," he murmured, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. In every way imaginable, the stakes of their relationship had changed. It was no longer a hidden affair, but a powerful alliance, a partnership that thrived in both the boardroom and the bedroom. And Y/N knew, with a thrilling certainty, that she wouldn't have it any other way. /N. The intensity of the office is one thing, but Junkook wants to have Y/N all to himself, away from prying eyes and professional responsibilities. A weekend getaway reveals new layers of their relationship, where passion is mingled with tender, domestic intimacy. Friday evening. Junkook leaned against her desk as she packed her bag. "Don't make any plans for the weekend," he said, a mischievous glint in his IY/N. "Oh, and why is that, Mr. Jeon? A/K. "Because your boyfriend is stealing you," he replied, taking her hand and pulling her up. "Pack an overnight bag. We're leaving in an hour." He refused to tell her where they were going. He drove them out of the city, the skyline shrinking in the rearview mirror, until they reached a secluded, modern cabin nestled in the woods. It was all glass and warm wood, overlooking a serene, private Lake J/K. "No phones, no emails, no interruptions," he said, carrying their bags inside. "Just us." The first night was a revelation of a different kind of passion. Without the constant threat of discovery, the urgency was replaced by a luxurious, languid intensity. He made love to her in front of the floor-to-ceiling fireplace, the firelight dancing over their skin. He took his time, his touches exploratory and worshipful, learning the sounds she made when there was no one to hear but him. The next morning, she woke to find his side of the bed empty. She found him in the stunning kitchen, attempting to make pancakes. There was batter on the counter, and a comically determined frown on his face. Y/N. Leaning against the doorway, smiling, "Need a hand, CEO-nim." J/K. He scowled, but his eyes were warm. "I can manage a multi-billion-won company. I can manage pancakes." He couldn't. They were slightly burnt, but they were the best she'd ever tasted. They ate them on the deck, wrapped in a single blanket, watching the mist rise off the lake. The entire weekend was a series of such moments. They went for a walk in the woods, and he pressed her against a giant oak tree, kissing her until she was breathless, the scent of pine and damp earth filling her senses. They swam in the cold, clear lake, and he pulled her against his slick, warm body, his hands roaming freely under the water in the afternoon. They lay on a blanket in the sun. He rested his head in her lap, and she ran her fingers through his hair. He was quiet, his eyes closed, a look of pure peace on his face that she had never seen before. J/K. "This is what I want," he murmured without opening his eyes. "More of this, more of you like this, without the suits and the schedules." Y/N. "What are you saying?" He opened his eyes and looked up at her, his gaze serious. I'm saying I don't want you to be my secretary anymore. The words felt like a physical blow. Her heart plummeted. What? He sat up quickly, seeing the hurt on her face. No, baby, not like that. He cupped her face. I mean, I want you by my side, but not as an employee. It's a conflict of interest, and more than that, I'm selfish. I don't want to share you with the company. I want you to have your own dreams. I'll support you in anything you want to do. He kissed her softly. Be with me. Just be with me. The relief and love that flooded her were overwhelming. He wasn't pushing her away. He was making space for her in his life, not just his office wife/in. I don't know what I want to do yet, she admitted A/K. You have all the time in the world to figure it out, he said, pulling her into his arms, as long as I'm with you while you do. That night, their lovemaking was slower, deeper, filled with the new promises they had made. He kissed every inch of her skin, as if memorizing her, his whispers of love mingling with the sounds of the forest outside. The weekend away had stripped them bare, not just physically, but emotionally, revealing a future that was brighter and more beautiful than either had dared to imagine a/in. All stories reach their culmination back from their transformative weekend. Junkook and Y/N must build their new reality. The office that was once the backdrop for their secret affair now becomes the foundation for their very public future. Returning to the office on Monday felt like crossing a threshold. The cabin in the woods had been a dream. This was their new reality. Y/N had given her 2 weeks' notice, a decision met with knowing smiles and genuine well wishes from their colleagues. She would help train her replacement, and then her future was a blank, beautiful canvas. Junkook, true to his word, was relentlessly supportive. He spent evenings with her, brainstorming ideas for her own ventures, his business acumen a gentle guide rather than a commanding force. But the office still held its magic. On her second to last day, he called her into his office late in the afternoon. The setting sun cast long, golden beams across the room. He wasn't at his desk. He was standing by the sofa, holding 2 glasses of champagne. Y/N. What's this for? She asked, taking the glass he offered. J/K. A toast, he said, his eyes soft. To my brilliant, beautiful girlfriend, and to her last day as my employee tomorrow. They clinked glasses. As she took a sip, he took her glass and set both aside. He led her to their sofa, and sat down, pulling her onto his lap. She nestled into him, her head on his shoulder, breathing in his familiar, comforting scent. J/K. This sofa has seen a lot, he mused, his hand stroking her back. Y/N. It's seen the best moments of my life, she replied honestly. He shifted, reaching into his pocket. Her breath caught. He pulled out a small, black velvet box. Y/N. Inner monologue. Oh my God. This is it, but he didn't open it. He just held it, his expression suddenly vulnerable. J/K. I'm not giving you this yet, he said softly. when I put a ring on your finger, it won't be in the office where we had to hide. It will be on a mountaintop or on a beach at sunset, somewhere that is just for us, with no memories of secrets. He placed the box in her hand. This is a promise that the ring is coming, a promise that I want forever with you. This box is my heart. Will you keep it safe for me until I can give you the ring it holds? Tears streamed down her face freely. This was so much more romantic than a traditional proposal. It was a vow of intention, a testament to their journey Y/N. Yes, she choked out, clutching the box to her chest. Yes, of course I will. He kissed her then, a kiss that was both a goodbye to their old life and a welcome to their new one. It was sweet and deep, filled with all the love, passion, and hope they shared later. As they were leaving the office for the night, hand in hand, he paused at her old desk. He looked at the empty chair, then back at her, a triumphant, loving smile on his face. J/K. Ready to go home, my love. Y/N. Home, she repeated, the word feeling more right than ever before. The office had been the crucible where their love was forged in secret touches, whispered confessions, and passionate encounters on a leather sofa. But now they were stepping out of that crucible, stronger and united. The secret was no longer an affair. It was the profound, unshakable knowledge that they had built something lasting. Their story wasn't ending. It was finally, truly beginning.